Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni. I'm an alignment coach and energy healer. This podcast, Healing Conversation for Anything Chronic, is a podcast that has the message, the hope to bring alternative healing message to the world. Before we get started, let me introduce you to our lovely guest today, Lisa Tahir. Lisa, hi.
Hi, Einav. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Thank you. I'm really excited about the conversation. But before we get started, I'll just share with our viewers and listeners a little bit about you. So, Lisa is a licensed therapist, host of All Things Therapy podcast. She's an artist and author of Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness. And the book has been endorsed by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Lisa, I am so excited to have you here. Let's get started. Tell us something about you. Where did it all start?
Einav, it actually all started when I was 5 years old. And I was so surprised, yet also not surprised, when my dad told me this story that he and my mom found a hand scribbled note when I was just 5 years old saying that when I grow up, I want to be a psychiatrist. And at first I thought, oh, that's so cute. And then I thought, that's a little disturbing. Why does a 5 year old want to be a psychiatrist? That's such a big word for a little child. And in the family I grew up in, my parents were in the medical field. My dad was a doctor, my mom was a psychiatric nurse. So I heard terms like psychiatrist being used from my earliest ages and memories. And what I take from that is that even in my baby book, my mom wrote that I had a lot of empathy, that I loved helping people. And it all came together for me when I was 21 and entered therapy as a client because I knew I was lacking some skills in communication and emotional regulation, and I wanted to learn those things because and excuse my coughing, I'm getting well from the flu, so there might be a little coughing. um just I knew I wanted to heal myself, that's really key in being a healthy person.
Hmm. And so there you are at 21, doing
Yeah.
some going to therapy. What then inspired you to continue on your own therapy, being a therapist
Well,
journey?
I knew when I was in that room with Marilyn, excuse me, was her name. I knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life, was to help people understand themselves, their emotional patterns, their behavioral patterns that create our lives. And it starts in the area of our thoughts. What we think creates belief systems, and that sets us on an orbit of our daily habits, we call them, our daily routines. And I see that as a mini solar system. Each of us are a little planet, and we orbit people, places, and things, other planets, and they orbit us. And it creates kind of a set frequency. That's how we predict our routine, our week, our lives. And often they look much the same one day to the other. And that's awesome for you if you really love your life and you're living your full potential, your joy, your prosperity. But I think for most people, there are a lot of areas that work, but maybe, one or two that we wish were in a better place and we're not sure how to get there. And that's what led me in more recent years to write my book, The Chiron Effect, to help us understand what patterns of thought might be inhibiting us in the area of our belief system to actually believe that we can have the life experiences that we want.
Hmm.
And I'll pause there to check in with you and see how that feels to you.
Yes, thank you. And I think that's, to me, that it resonates, very much with me and what I do with my own clients, because limiting beliefs, obviously, they're limiting, but they're also hidden. And so a lot of people, they want to do something and they can't do it, and they get spiraling, into that thing of, why can't I do it, and I don't know how to come out of where it is that I am, and what should I do, and how do I do things differently? So how do you approach these kind of thoughts and fears that people have?
I think, Ainav, when we look at our lives, and those of you watching, excuse me, or listening, I think sometimes those limiting beliefs aren't so obscured from us. I think they often come from well-meaning people, our parents, our teachers. They come from the media. And I think we're told more of like, play it safe. Like, what? You want to do what? That costs a lot of money, or that will take years of your life to get the education to do that, to be that. And so we kind of shrink back into a more uh safe life, or a more predictable life.
Yeah,
And I think we're really trained away from our intuition. And especially women, we have such a strong sense of intuition. And it's that gut feeling that often isn't linked to anything logical. You just know no to that. Or we know yes, that excites us. But we tend to override it with our logical mind. And also in my work with clients and in my book, I'm here to help train you into the knowing, the listening to of your intuition, of that gut feeling that is leading us to live the lives that we really want. And I think that has to be mediated only with what experiences did you grow up with that were wounding. I talk about core wounds, and for some of you, those are bigger true core wounding. If you experience sexual abuse or physical abuse, or if you were neglected, if there was violence in your home, that you were taught to believe the world isn't safe, and so you naturally might limit some of what you do or believe you can do because things were just so painful. And it's really about healing those deep wounds if you're on that side of the spectrum of core wounding. And for others of you, you're on the other end of that spectrum, which is more of just like an ouch, that you didn't experience any of those big traumas, thank goodness. And you have a healthy self esteem. Maybe for you, it's just you're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, that discomfort. You like to play it more safe, and your intuition might kind of keep you in that safe zone versus what if you did something. And I invite you to practice with something fun, be it like rock climbing, or um zip lining, something, a roller coaster, something that gets you out of your comfort zone, but it's also considered play. And these are some ways you can start to feel into um, putting yourself a bit outside of your comfort zone that also excites you.
mm. I think that's a wonderful idea. Getting out of your comfort zone is can be a lot of fun. I definitely support that. But I want to go back to what you just said about the core wounds versus the ouch. I guess it's interesting for me in the sense that it's all about you're experiencing something, and now you are in some way scared, or not feeling that you can step out of this shell or bubble, or whatever it is that you created for yourself. But do I understand correctly that, that your definition or your differentiation between these two terms is basically by how much you are willing to move forward with your life, or how much you allow your life to get stuck, or
Well, I
how?
think that's actually very it's a good question. It's very individualized and very nuanced. And in my book, I go really deep into healing from trauma. Those of you that have experienced, like my experience as a therapist, I specialize in helping people heal from sexual abuse and domestic violence and physical abuse. So it's a very deep process of realigning everything in you to have the experience of safety. And often that's with a therapist for the first time, where you can actually talk about some of those things that you experienced without being shamed, without being criticized, without being blamed. And it's through really exposing those younger, tender parts of yourself. And my book actually walks you through this process. I have journal prompts, and I invite you to revisit some of the memories where you felt deeply loved and memories where you didn't feel loved. And then the meanings that you made about yourself. And in working with the meanings that you made about yourself, like that I'm unworthy, that I'm not valuable. And this is where my book centers on Chiron. Chiron is an astrological placement, Chiron, in your birth chart. And it identifies areas of core wounding and vulnerability. There's 12 of them that my book speaks to. And this would be, say, if Chiron is in Taurus, this speaks to core wounding by neglect. And it might have been neglect because a caretaker, a parent, had a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, and they actually were neglecting you because their addiction was their primary attachment. Or Chiron in the sign of Cancer speaks to core wounding by abandonment. Chiron in the sign of Virgo speaks about core wounding in your physical health, how you might neglect it, or it might have been neglected truly by your caretakers. And it really helps for you to understand the area to nurture yourself, to nourish yourself, to create some more self-supportive beliefs, and to take actions to truly nurture and love yourself. And I give like 5 or 6 practical examples that you could try like today to see, to start stepping out in new ways for yourself that are loving and caring.
So I would like to understand a little bit more about this. I mean, I know a little bit about astrology.
Yeah,
I just and I have just started listening to your book, and I'm very much enjoying it.
thank
Um,
you.
but for example, when you mentioned about the Chiron in with the physical health that you mentioned, how do I actually understand this? Is it personal to me depending on where when I was born, or is
Yes.
it more generally about the year and the time of the year? Please help me understand it a little bit
I will.
better.
No, it's a good question because even and how I even received this material, Einav, is that I've been a therapist 25 years, and I felt really frustrated that why do I have super successful, high functioning clients that are still experiencing anxiety and depression, and why am I, as being a healer, as having been doing my work consistently through various modalities for myself to really excavate my own life experiences and make new meaning. Why was I still feeling some anxiety and depression? And I turned to meditation and just asking, what is going on? And I just started to hear the word Chiron, Chiron. And it was not very remarkable. I didn't feel like that was anything significant. But like any of you watching or listening, when there's something for you, it keeps coming up. It comes on the radio, you see it on a billboard, people are talking about it. It's like it won't let you go when you really deeply seek to know the truth or an answer for yourself or for a loved one. And that's what happening. This Chiron kept coming up. And so I know when this happens, I need to just lean into it and research. And I learned some of the Chiron was a healer in Greek mythology, the founding father of medicine, therapy, pharmacy, botany. Chiron in astronomy is a minor planet between Saturn and Uranus in our solar system. It was discovered in 1977, and it was the first of the Centaur class because it had an odd elliptical orbit and was named Chiron after the centaur of Greek mythology. So I thought, well, that's really interesting. Then we know about Carl Jung, who wrote about the archetypes. Chiron is the wounded healer archetype, again, from Greek mythology. And lastly, I learned that Chiron is this astrological placement that I had never heard about, even when I've had an astrological reading or when I've Googled about astrology. And that's where I found this to be an important diagnostic point because knowing, and it's based on, yes, the place you were born, the date you were born, and Chiron will be generated in one of the 12 signs: Aries, Scorpio, Aquarius, etc. And I took 3.5 years to synthesize what this means for you in one of these 12 areas of core wounding. And I thought it's been remarkable that like 99.9% of people have resonated with this, where their Chiron is. And I had a little bit of a hard time, Einav, like accepting this until, because I thought I had always been told astrology, like it's a blueprint of where the stars are in the sky when you were born, and thinking it was prescribed to us. And I struggled with that because I really believe in free will and choice, and that we can learn skills to change and grow. And I suddenly had this huge download, Einav, that we wrote our astrology chart. You wrote yours, I wrote mine, everyone listening wrote theirs. We just don't have that memory of it. So you wrote your chart, you chose these certain issues and propensities to be as a spirit in a human body. And because of that, we can absolutely change and grow and learn. And when you start to appreciate that your deepest wounds are actually your greatest power, because when you don't feel afraid of them anymore, when you don't feel like you have to hide or be ashamed of those parts of yourself, of not feeling good enough, or being a people pleaser, or maybe being kind of a chameleon to fit in, when you learn you don't have to be afraid of that, those were adaptive mechanisms for you to try to source love and belonging. You're really free to be more of yourself and to share that with others. And it really gives other people permission to be more authentic. And that's what I find to be the most beautiful. And I wonder what you think about that.
Well, I am listening with quite a lot of I have quite a lot of questions to ask. So when you say your basically your biggest wounds are basically your greatest talents or gifts.
Yeah.
When people are saying, for example, the feeling of not being good enough,
Yeah.
that's a big one that obviously comes up a lot. How do I understand that in terms of this is your biggest gift? If you allow yourself to basically stop being afraid of it, uh, how do we take it further? How do we take it forward?
Sure. So for those of you watching or listening and you have this pattern of thought where you're not feeling good enough, that typically would be Chiron in the sign of Aries, a wounding in your sense of personal value and worth. And typically, you are a successful person. People perceive you to be really successful. They think you have it all together, and you feel inwardly like you're never enough. And it's so depleting and frustrating and exhausting for you because you haven't connected to your innate worthiness. And maybe that's because when you grew up, you were told you weren't good enough. That love, you learned love through performance based love. You had to do, you had to give. Your caretakers typically didn't give you enough acknowledgement, like that you're perfect, that you can do anything. Like I know some of my friends were told, "Oh my gosh, sweetie, you can do anything. You can be anything." And like that's hard for me to imagine because I didn't get messages like that. And so it's like foreign. There's a disconnect between your innate goodness and value on this planet. And so you achieve, and you're such a beautiful and wonderful achiever, but you come to a place in your life where you're really depleted by that. So I offer in my book that you've been sourcing value through extrinsic achievement. And I invite you to shift to intrinsic achievements, the qualities that you possess, such as being empathetic, being caring, being kind and generous. And you typically overlook these qualities, thinking, yeah, of course, like that's just a given. But it's
Mm.
really learning to approve and value those intrinsic qualities and step away from the performance based achievement and see what that feels like. And at first, it's probably going to feel really uncomfortable to just knowing you're good enough if you never did another thing. But it's through really exploring that. And I do think sometimes it helps to have a teacher, a therapist, a counselor, a guide to really hold you by the hand, since these are new ways of learning to value and love yourself. That, and my book is one of those guides to really walk you by the hand and ask you questions, excavate where you developed feeling like you weren't good enough and why you felt like you had to give so much to be loved and what it feels like, for example, to maybe go to a dinner party and not bring something, because typically you're the person that brings things. You bring flowers, you bring wine, you bring a dish. Even if the person says, no, just come, just bring yourself. And a first step could be to really just go. And it can be really scary. I was on that journey too. And just go as yourself and see how happy people are just to be with you, not with the gifts that you bring, but just to have time in your energy. And over time, you start to really drop that persona of working so hard to be loved. And you start to experience that you are loved and you're able to have more freedom. You don't have to jump through all the hoops anymore progressively. And this for me took a few years. For you, it might take shorter to have this relief that you're just valuable and you offer just your light, just your being, just your presence, help people feel happy. And it's through taking some risks. It's a risk to go somewhere and not show up with something, to feel like I'm participating and contributing. That feels really scary for you. And to just start with somebody you feel really safe with, to even ask them, hey, I want to work on my value and worth and my sense of it, to just maybe allow somebody to treat you to dinner and you don't immediately reciprocate with something. And I think for a lot of women, this is a challenge, that when we're given a gift, when we're bought a present, we start to think, how can I just reciprocate immediately and sit in the receiving longer? And that's going to help you start to change this pattern. Is any of this resonating, Einav?
Absolutely. 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 And it's also leading on from that is that think of when people say the only thing, I'm being with someone or I'm talking with someone and the only thing I think about is what are they thinking about me? And it's
Yes.
that thing of really just let it go. It's not important what they think about you. Just be yourself. Just lean into, what calls you who you are and just be.
Well, and I think that can be hard to just, because we all, I mean, even myself, I care about what people, excuse me, think of me or how I'm being perceived. Yet that can be less and less of a driver in your life and try this on when you listen to understand. And that's a deeper listening. Like right now, I'm sitting with you, and instead of thinking of my next point that I want to make, which has taken me a lot of growth, I'm just listening to understand, Aina, what you want to know in our conversation now, since you know your audience best. So instead of me thinking I need to sound smart or tie this very complex book together in a few minutes, I'm just listening to understand you. And when I've gotten more comfortable with that, and when I just listen to someone to understand, it starts to take that pressure off of you to have all the answers. And you just really want to understand. You want to harmonize with the energy of the conversation. And that opens up parts of yourself to really have authentic connection and communication. And I feel like this is something you do regularly, Ainav. Am I correct? You listen to understand.
Yeah, that's what I strive to do. I guess sometimes, I guess there's different levels of listening, but yes, that's definitely what I aim to do or try to do.
But I think it's a good place for someone to start who is concerned about what people think, and that might get in your way to enjoying events, especially with the holidays going on. I have a lot of clients, their social anxiety comes up because you're in rooms with some people you know and a lot of people you don't. And that can really trigger a lot of concern for people. And I would invite you, if that's the case, to just use your intuition. When you walk in the room, notice, kind of scan the room, walk around, and just notice who you're led to. Because again, your intuition is leading you to the people to have good conversations with, and try to look with your inner eyes of awareness versus your outer eyes of who do I know, and just kind of emotionally scan the room and notice who you're led to and notice who approaches you, and try to just have an listen to understand. Hey, I'm Lisa. What's your name? What do you do? Just try to like take the pressure off and seek enjoyment And that can start to shift some of the holiday experiences. And that starts to heal your core wounding around these things as well, where you just kind of let yourself feel it out. And if it really becomes anxious for you, it's okay to excuse yourself and leave. If that really is feels uncomfortable.
Mm. And can I ask? You mentioned earlier. You said that we all write our own astrology map in a
Yeah.
sense. Does
Yeah.
that is that the same? Do I understand this the same as the our soul plan before we arrived here?
I guess it could be. I feel like in my experience, and I feel like people have different beliefs. And I address that in my book that, some of you might believe what I'm writing and sharing, and some of you don't. So just take what works and leave the rest and filter it through your own paradigm. I think diversity is important. I think difference of opinion is so exciting that we all don't have to agree. So I think if it resonates, I believe that I absolutely had a desired human experience from where I was before here, and always am. I believe we're all eternal. And I came into my human body to try out and experience some of these roles, and to like be a healer and to share this and help people understand themselves. And so, yeah, that's what I believe. What do you believe?
Absolutely, I share the exact same belief. I never thought about it in the terms of astrology, map and all of that, but about the soul plan and that we arrive here to experience certain things and that we've, decided them before arriving. I believe completely.
And I
And
think, go on, you first.
no, no, please go.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, that would be my next question.
Tell me what you think about this then. There's been some people I meet in my life, and they're so familiar, and it's like I almost see, oh my gosh, like we have definitely been together, lived together. Like I feel like they're people we're even reunited with
Hmm.
on earth, that like we know because we had an experience before together. Like we wrote each other in our life plan or in our experience. I wonder how you feel about that.
Yes, completely. I mean, I definitely see in my own life that there have been some people that it wasn't necessarily the greatest joy, but it was definitely a very important lesson. And I know that they were there, that the instant attraction, or the connection was so important, so that I could go through this and make the learning. I definitely see that.
Yes. Awesome. I thought you might.
I want to ask about the healing, and so people that find themselves now with chronic illnesses or chronic pain, how can we use all of this knowledge from your book to help guide them to the healing, or to make sense of it in a way that is more, of course it depends where they are, but some people still feel like, why did it happen to me, and feeling
Right.
victim, and how do we help them to navigate this a little bit more, well, in a way that is more beneficial for them?
I think that's such a beautiful question to be handled with sensitivity, because when you're experiencing a chronic illness in your body, there's the sense that the body has betrayed me, and there's a disconnect between the mind and one's body that feels very scary. It feels it could be frustrating, angering, just confusing, and that
Mm.
generates emotion of, negative emotion of fear, of helplessness, of worry. And I think as a starting point, a best thing to do is to, if you're not already, to really start communicating with your body and asking your body, hey, like, an example, I'm feeling disconnect. I feel like we're in a disconnect. Tell me what's going on. Tell me how I can help you. Tell me how I can use my mind to help you, to help the cells heal, to align, to have better health. I think there's a lot of information there. And when you take time to start speaking, and it can be out loud or quietly in your mind, to really feel into what can happen as possibilities for the body to start really reconfiguring itself, and the information it wants you to know, that maybe there was a very painful sadness when you were young that caused this misalignment in your cells in your body, that that grew and evolved into something bigger today that you're experiencing as an adult with a chronic illness or physical issue, ailment, and to really start to deepen that communication and connection. And I think meditation, guided meditation, um, there's so many beautiful ones on YouTube that I've used to really for physical healing, to start to quiet and align and just feel into your body and just what it wants you to know. Is this resonating, Ainav, for you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's I definitely believe that. Well, that's kind of the thing that I do a lot is really talking about the emotional root cause of chronic pain and illnesses and stuff like that, because I believe that there is a reason, there is something
Yeah.
behind this. And when we don't understand or we don't listen to the message, then we just follow the physical pain or illness. But when we understand the emotional root cause, when we understand that there is something that we moved away from our alignment, then we can start, kind of work.
Untangling that,
Yeah.
to use the name of your show, untangle that.
Yes.
You know, and I think
Absolutely.
I think anger at the self, I think can really cause illness to happen. That shame from childhood that never got healed, or adolescence, that then we really take out upon ourselves. And I think in the absence of someone being accountable for what they've done, that we can internalize that and start to have hatred towards ourselves or others, even that really starts to manifest in our body not working properly in alignment. And I think to really self-forgiveness, my book centers upon self-forgiveness
Yeah.
as a healing uh like paradigm and way to really forgive yourself, all the layers of judgment that you have held against yourself, to really let yourself off the hook for it. I think forgiveness, we're taught, is for others. I believe it's first and foremost for us. And that's a tool to start to heal and realign your relationship to your body and its relationship to you as the vehicle that we're in.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that when I was listening to the book. I haven't finished listening yet, but I was wondering, because sometimes the idea of forgiveness, and I hear it, not in your book, but in other places, where basically say, people saying to forgive. People say yes, I forgive you, but then they don't, because it's deeper than that. And I think you did say that forgiveness is not a static thing, but more
Right.
repeated thing. So
It's a process often.
yeah, that's the word you used. Yes. So how do people use that really? How do we move away from just, yes, I'm saying I'm forgiving, to really doing the work and be part of that process?
I think it's actually revealed in layers, because maybe you actually do forgive in that moment, and it's where you are. And as the layers of the onion peel down, something comes up later and it's like, "Oh, like that still that still causes me to feel angry or resentful." So there's another layer of forgiveness that you can do with or without the person. You don't have to have the person in your life still to be able to forgive them or yourself. But it's often forgiving you, like that you might be hard on yourself for still feeling resentful, or why can't I let this go? You hear it so often, people berating themselves because they can't let something go. Stop and understand it's okay that you can't let it go. You obviously need more time. You obviously need more time to feel into how this affected you, that your disappointment, your hope that wasn't met, and to really take time with that and to forgive yourself, to forgive the experience, and just it comes up over time of your
Mm.
life. So just allow for that process to unfold however long it needs to take.
Is forgiveness? Can you forgive yourself, someone else, your experiences, without analyzing it, or is it a contradiction, or is it in alignment? How do you see that?
I think how that applies to say how deep the betrayal, how deep the wound. Certainly, if somebody's late for dinner, and it was just there's traffic. Hopefully, that's something that most of us can easily forgive. That doesn't really take a lot. But oh my gosh, of course, it's fine. I'm glad you're here. Let's let's get started. Versus when someone betrays you, when there's been cheating or abuse, that's deeper layers and levels of forgiveness that often take time to happen, because maybe as a child you experience a similar wound, and that my book speaks to patterns, that we are engaging with patterns and trying to work them out, and that's why some things repeat in our lives that we've experienced previously. It's like the layers of the onion peeling down, and life, the universe, whatever words you use, wanting us to heal. We are wired to heal physically, emotionally, psychologically. It's a natural process that the body, the mind, the soul wants to heal. So when recurring themes come up, it's not to hurt you or bamboozle you, it's to actually help you heal. And when you can allow that process and take some time for it, healing takes time. You might have to not be so busy for a while to be with your emotions, because our emotions require us to stop some of the activity we're doing and be with those parts of ourselves. So you might need to schedule some time to be less busy, to be with your emotions,
Yeah.
for instance. Does that
Yeah.
resonate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also believe in patterns, and that, they will keep on happening until we
Yeah,
pause to understand them.
exactly.
And so tell me, in your practice, are you using all of this information, all of these things that you're mentioning in the book? Is that mostly the way that you take your clients through that journey of
I
healing?
do.
And
What I always start with what's most important to you, what's bringing you in. And then I'll weave in the other attributes and paradigms and such, but I always like to start right where you are, because a person made a call or sent the email because there's something important to them now. And I feel like history can be ascertained and learned later, whereas like what is your experience today that you want to feel better about or have some clarity around. So that's where I start.
mm, wonderful. So it's nearly time for us to finish for today. But what is one thing that you would like our listeners or viewers to go away with today?
I would love for all of you listening or watching to take time every day. If you can put a hand or two over your heart, you can do this in the restroom, you can do this when you wake up, and just breathe in through your heart space, exhaling worry, doubt, fear, inhaling possibility, inhaling healing, and asking to know more of who I am, asking to know more of who I am, who I want to be, and just allowing those possibilities, asking for all of my possibilities to show themselves to me, and do that every day in some way. And the language is going to change, it's going to become your own, and that's going to open up new pathways in your life to express yourself and to receive joy and healing and love.
I love that. Thank you. I'm going to try
You're
that.
welcome.
Show me the possibilities. Exciting.
Thank you for the
Cool.
light that you are.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for watching or listening. Thank you.